Welcome, dear subscribers and curious listeners of my channel. Hogwarts is not just a school of magic. It is a living castle, brimming with secrets, oddities, and enchantments that can never be fully understood. The films showed us only a tiny fragment of what lies behind its walls, and today I want to take you back into a world where every door and every staircase might be hiding a surprise. Enjoy watching. Number 1. A castle in Scotland. Hogwarts stands in the north amid the rugged Scottish landscapes shielded by dozens of spells. Muggles can never reach it. To them it appears as crumbling ruins with a keep out sign. Even satellite images of the area are useless. Magic ensures no one will ever truly see the castle. But the protection is not just against prying eyes. Hogwarts guards and shelters its students, and perhaps that's why it has stood for so many centuries. Number 2. Muggle technology is powerless here. Inside the school, phones, laptops, and any other Muggle devices simply do not work. This is the result of ancient enchantments woven into the very structure of the castle. Modern students would probably be horrified to learn they must live without the internet, but here it's just normal life. There have been rare exceptions, though. For example, Colin Creevey's old-fashioned film camera somehow managed to bypass all the restrictions. Number 3. 142 staircases. And yes, they all move. Some are tall and narrow, others have disappearing steps capable of driving any first-year mad. Poor Neville, he could tell you plenty of stories. The staircases can rotate, switch floors, or even change their direction entirely according to an unpredictable schedule. In the films, this chaos is almost absent. There, the staircases seem neat and obedient. But in the books, they are a true nightmare for navigation. Number 4. Tricky doors. Every door in Hogwarts is its own little adventure. Yes, we know about the fat lady's password for the Gryffindor common room, or the password to the Headmaster's office. But there are far more inventive locks. A door might open only after you sing Solve a Riddle or tickle the right spot. For instance, the school kitchens are hidden behind a painting of a fruit bowl. Tickle the pear, and the entrance swings open. Number 5. The House Common Rooms. The films left out many wonderful details. The Slytherin common room is partly underwater, with light filtering through the depths of the lake, giving the rooms a green, shadowy glow. The Ravenclaw common room sits high in a tower, with panoramic views and its own library. And the Hufflepuff common room, a warm, sunlit place in the basement right next to the kitchens, is perhaps the coziest of them all. Number 6. The castle's discipline. Hogwarts knows exactly how to keep its students in line. For example, if a boy tries to enter the girls' dormitory, the staircase instantly turns into a slide. It doesn't work the other way around. Girls can freely enter the boys' rooms. Number 7. The magic of restoration. The castle not only holds secrets but can heal itself. If students damage something while experimenting with spells, the harm eventually vanishes. But Hogwarts truly suffered during the battle with the Death Eaters, and although the restoration took time, the castle ultimately managed to mend itself. Number 8. Peeves, the poltergeist you never saw. Peeves was the living spirit of Hogwarts mischief. He floated through the corridors, cackling as he jammed chewing gum into keyholes or dropped water balloons on unsuspecting heads. Filch hated him with a passion, yet could never get rid of him. In Order of the Phoenix, during Dolores Umbridge's reign, Peeves turned the castle into a battlefield, rolling carpets down staircases, smashing vases, and even sawing through a chandelier rope. His finest moment came when Professor McGonagall, passing by, whispered, "It unscrews the other way," helping him remove a chandelier bolt. In the films, Peeves is erased completely, and with him goes a piece of the castle's personality. On the page, he is not just a prankster, he is chaos given form, a reminder that Hogwarts is alive and unpredictable. Without him, the corridors feel quieter, the trouble tamer, and the school's wild heart less visible. Number 9. House elves and the real kitchen. The feasts in the Great Hall do not appear by magic alone. Beneath the castle, in warm, bustling kitchens, over 100 house elves work tirelessly. They prepare roasts, pies, soups and puddings, sending them up through enchanted trapdoors in the floor. The long tables in the kitchens mirror those in the Great Hall, so food can be placed exactly where it needs to appear. In Goblet of Fire, Harry first visited the kitchens with Fred and George, finding Dobby there, beaming with pride over his new job and wages. The kitchen is also home to Winky, the dismissed elf of the Crouch family, who spends her days near the great fireplace, still heartbroken over her past. Winky is getting paid, yes, but she is not liking it, she sniffed, refusing to see freedom as a gift. Scenes like this reveal the depth of elf culture, loyalty, pride, and the weight of tradition. Their work is invisible to students, but without them, Hogwarts would feel far less alive. In the films, this entire world is almost erased. We never see the rows of copper pots, the flames dancing under cauldrons, or the quiet coordination that makes every meal perfect. On the page, the kitchens are a hidden heartbeat of the school, where magic is made not by spells alone, but by countless careful, unseen hands. Number 10. The Room of Requirement. More than a secret hideout. The Room of Requirement appears only when you truly need it. Walk past its hidden door 3 times, thinking of what you seek, and it will be there. In Order of the Phoenix, Harry asked for a place to train the DA, and the room became a perfect practice hall, cushions for stunners, shelves of magical books, and even a sneakoscope glowing in the corner. Neville Longbottom once described it simply, "It's brilliant, like it's been waiting for us." But the room's magic runs deeper. When someone needs to hide something, it transforms into the Room of Hidden Things. Here, centuries of Hogwarts secrets gather in dusty heaps, broken cauldrons, cursed artifacts, forgotten brooms. In Half-Blood Prince, Draco Malfoy used this vast maze to repair the vanishing cabinet, plotting his deadly mission. In Deathly Hallows, Harry found Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem hidden on a high shelf, not knowing it was a Horcrux. The room has rules. It can't create food, bound by Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration. Dobby once explained to Harry that it could, however, produce almost anything else, robes, potion ingredients, even beds, if the need was real. This makes it both a gift and a mirror. It gives you what you desire most urgently, but never what you can simply wish for idly. In the films, the room is shown mainly as the DA's headquarters or as a hiding place in the final battle. The vastness of the Room of Hidden Things and its long history are barely touched. On the page, it feels alive, shifting, listening, and remembering. It's not just a secret room, it's the castle's answer to need itself. Number 11. Studies beyond what the films show. Subjects and exams. Hogwarts teaches far more than the films reveal. Beyond potions, charms, and transfiguration, there are classes like arithmancy, taught by the precise and sharp-eyed Professor Vector. Ancient runes, where students decipher magical scripts older than the castle itself. Numerology, blending numbers with prophecy. And Muggle studies, where wizards learn about the non-magical world's inventions and culture. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione's schedule was so overloaded with these electives that she needed a time-turner just to attend them all. "I've been turning back time," she admitted to Harry and Ron, exhaustion in her voice. Some of these lessons were anything but ordinary. In ancient runes, students puzzled over inscriptions that shifted when read incorrectly. In arithmancy, they calculated complex magical equations that could alter the strength of spells. Muggle studies asked them to compare magical solutions with non-magical ones, sparking debates that sometimes grew heated. These subjects added depth to a wizard's education, training minds as much as wands. Without them, the castle's academic life loses a layer of its richness. Then there were the exams, especially OWLs in 5th year, and NEWTs in 7th, They weren't just written tests. Students performed spells under the watchful eyes of external examiners. In Order of the Phoenix, Harry's defense against the dark arts practical was conducted by Professor Tofty, who even asked him to conjure a Patronus, something no other student in the room could manage. Ron fumbled a few spells in charms. Hermione breezed through every section with her usual precision. These exams decided their futures. Careers in the Ministry, the Aura Office, or St. Mungo's could depend on them. The films rush past this side of school life, showing only glimpses of study sessions or stress before tests. But in the books, exams are events that consume the castle. Common rooms turn into revision dens. Libraries hum with whispered incantations. Even the ghosts offer advice. Hogwarts is not only a place of adventures and battles, it is, at its heart, a school, and those long hours bent over parchment are as much a part of its story as any duel. Number 12. Secret Passages and the Marauder's Map. Beneath Hogwarts lies a hidden world. Old stone passages twist under the castle, some so ancient no one remembers who built them. The most famous begins at the humpbacked, one-eyed witch on the 3rd floor. Whisper the spell, Descendium, and her hump swings open, revealing a dark tunnel all the way to Honeydukes in Hogsmeade. Fred and George Weasley showed Harry this secret, their eyes shining with mischief. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry crept through that passage in the dead of winter, the smell of sweets growing stronger with every step. But that's only one path. There are 7 secret passages leading out of the castle, according to Fred and George, and not all are safe. Some are caved in, others are guarded. Ghosts like the Fat Friar or nearly headless Nick know of routes that living students never use. Argus Filch, the caretaker, has his own private list. He's blocked several with heavy doors. And then there are the ones mapped by 4 infamous troublemakers: Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Their greatest gift to Hogwarts mischief was the Marauder's Map. It didn't just show walls and corridors, it breathed. It wrote the names of every person in the castle, showing their steps in real time. Harry once saw Peter Pettigrew walking the corridors, even though Pettigrew was supposed to be dead. The map exposed lies, revealed spies, and guided countless late-night adventures. "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good," Harry would murmur, watching the ink bloom across the parchment. In the films, the map is there, but its magic feels smaller. We see Harry use it to track people, but not to explore the labyrinth beneath the school. The books let you sense its power, the way it makes Hogwarts unfold like a living puzzle. With the Marauder's Map in your hands, the castle is never just walls. It's a breathing maze of stone, secrets, and shadows, waiting for those bold enough to read its heart. Number 13. Sorting Hat Songs and History Lessons. Every September, before the first name is called, the Sorting Hat clears its throat and begins to sing. The song is never the same. Sometimes it is light, full of jokes and rhymes. Other years it turns serious, almost grim. In Order of the Phoenix, its voice rang across the great hall. And now the sorting's here again, and the Sorting Hat is here to tell you what is coming and warn you to prepare. The students listened in uneasy silence. This was not just a sorting, it was a warning. The hat remembers every founder: Godric Gryffindor's courage, Helga Hufflepuff's kindness, Rowena Ravenclaw's wisdom, Salazar Slytherin's ambition. Its verses weave their stories together, reminding everyone that Hogwarts was built to unite, not divide. In that same year, it pleaded with them to stand together, be strong and united, for dark times were coming. Few heeded its words, and the castle soon saw the truth of the prophecy. This tradition is alive in the books, but the films give it only a fraction of a moment. In Philosopher's Stone, we hear a single, cheerful verse before the sorting begins. After that, silence. The viewer never learns that the hat can sense danger, or that its songs shift with the tides of history. Without those songs, the sorting becomes a mere formality, stripped of the weight and foresight it carries in reality. The hat's music is more than entertainment. It is the castle speaking through an ancient artifact. It sees beyond the walls, beyond the term ahead. When it warns of discord, it's because it has lived through it before. In the books, this makes the sorting a moment of suspense, where the hall holds its breath to hear what the hat will say this year. In the films, that voice is muted, and with it, part of Hogwarts' soul. Number 14, Anti-apparition charms and allowed exceptions. In Hogwarts, no one can simply vanish from one spot and reappear in another. The school is sealed by powerful anti-apparition charms. Even the most skilled witches and wizards are bound by them. The walls, corridors, and even the air itself seem to reject such travel. It's not just a rule, it's the castle's own will. J.K. Rowling writes, "You can't apparate or disapparate inside the castle," Professor Dumbledore reminded more than once. Those words echo whenever students think about breaking the rule. The only person who can lift this enchantment, even for a moment, is the Headmaster. Albus Dumbledore himself sometimes allowed rare exceptions. In Harry's 6th year, the Great Hall was cleared for apparition lessons. Wilkie Twycross, the ministry instructor, appeared with a sharp crack because the restriction had been lifted just for him. Students stood in circles, their faces tense, as he repeated destination, determination, deliberation. The sound of failed attempts filled the hall, pops, bangs, and frustrated groans. Without these protections, the school would be dangerously exposed. Imagine Draco Malfoy slipping into the castle by apparition, or a Death Eater vanishing into thin air when cornered. The enchantments make such breaches impossible. In Half-Blood Prince, even when Harry chased Draco through the corridors, apparition was never an option. The chase remained bound to stone floors and turning staircases. This rule keeps the game fair. If you're inside, you play by Hogwarts rules. The films mention apparition in passing, yet the weight of the restriction never fully lands on the viewer. They miss the quiet tension of knowing the castle itself can hold even the strongest wizard in place. In the books, that unyielding barrier is almost a character on its own, watching, waiting, and deciding who, if anyone, gets to bend its laws. It's one of Hogwarts' greatest defenses, hidden in plain sight. Number 15, House Ghosts, Keepers of Memory. The ghosts of Hogwarts are far more than eerie decorations drifting through candlelit corridors. They are the keepers of memories that stretch back centuries, silent witnesses to the history of the castle and its students. In the books, their presence is woven deeply into the fabric of Hogwarts life, each spirit tied to a specific house, bound by loyalty, regret, or unfinished business. The films hint at their existence but leave their true purpose largely unexplored, reducing them to fleeting cameos or sources of mild comic relief. Yet in the pages of the novels, these spectral figures often carry the weight of forgotten truths, lost wisdom, and warnings that could alter the course of events. Their connection to their respective houses is not a mere tradition, but a vital thread in the tapestry of Hogwarts' living and non-living history. Nearly headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor, is a prime example of the gulf between page and screen. In the books, Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington is not simply a friendly apparition who floats about making introductions. He is a guide for Gryffindor students, an embodiment of the house's chivalrous yet sometimes tragic ideals. His near beheading, botched by an incompetent executioner, becomes more than a darkly humorous anecdote. It reflects the imperfections that haunt even the bravest of men. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, when Gryffindor suffers disgrace after Harry and Ron crash the flying Ford Anglia, it is Nick who tries to lift their spirits, offering reassurance and perspective. "Let me give you a bit of advice," he tells Harry in the book. "Don't bottle up your anger like that, Harry. Let it out." His role as a confidant and mentor is one the films never truly capture, stripping away a layer of Gryffindor's soul. Then there is the Bloody Baron, the silent, intimidating spectre of Slytherin House, whose mere presence commands obedience from even the most unruly beings within the castle. In the books, the Baron's spectral chains and bloodstains are not meaningless fright props, but a reflection of a tragic, violent past tied directly to the Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw. This haunting connection is revealed in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, where his confession to Harry exposes a deep wound in Hogwarts history. His unrequited love for Helena Ravenclaw and the fatal confrontation that led to both their deaths. This revelation does more than humanize the Baron. It reshapes the reader's understanding of how the diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw was lost, hidden, and ultimately corrupted into one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. The films reduce the Baron to a mute, menacing figure, robbing viewers of the emotional impact of his guilt and his vital role in controlling Peeves, the chaotic poltergeist who respects no one else. The Grey Lady, or Helena Ravenclaw, is perhaps the most grievous omission in the cinematic portrayal of Hogwarts ghosts. In the novels, her backstory is the key to one of the most pivotal quests in the series, Harry's search for Voldemort's final Horcruxes. Her reluctance to speak to anyone but her eventual openness with Harry in the final book is not merely an act of ghostly gossip, it is the culmination of centuries of silence, shame, and sorrow. She admits to Harry that she stole her mother's diadem, believing it would grant her the wisdom she craved, and fled to Albania, the very place where Voldemort would later hide and regain strength. Her words, "I sought to make myself cleverer, more important than my mother. I ran away with it," are tinged with regret and offer a deeply human portrait of pride and repentance. This confession, absent from the films until it is reduced to a rushed scene, gives the reader a sense of the enormous weight these spirits carry and the ways they can alter the living world. The Fat Friar, ghost of Hufflepuff House, may seem the least consequential at first glance, but in truth, he represents the quiet, steadfast nature of his house. He is the spirit who welcomes new Hufflepuff students with warmth, comforts them in moments of self-doubt, and never withholds kindness. In the books, his history is both noble and bittersweet. Once a kind-hearted monk who used his magic to heal the sick, he was executed by his fellow clergy for practicing charms they did not understand. His enduring optimism even in death is a testament to Hufflepuff's values, and though the films scarcely acknowledge him, the friar's presence in the common room, his gentle encouragement, and his ability to make young witches and wizards feel they belong, speak volumes about the moral heart of Hogwarts. These ghosts are not passive observers. They intervene in moments of crisis, often with knowledge inaccessible to the living. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, it is nearly headless Nick's headless hunt, a ghostly celebration Harry attends after accidentally offending Peeves, that indirectly leads Harry to discover crucial information from Moaning Myrtle about her death. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the Grey Lady's tale is the final clue that brings Harry to the diadem in the Room of Requirement. The Bloody Baron's control over Peeves is another example of ghostly influence. Without him, the poltergeist's chaos could have escalated into dangerous territory during numerous tense moments in the castle's history. Number 16, the Headmaster's Office, a treasury of magical history. The Headmaster's office at Hogwarts was never merely a place for stern conversations or cryptic advice from Albus Dumbledore. In the books, it was a layered repository of the school's soul, a chamber where the magic of centuries was pressed into every stone and artifact. The films, constrained by time and set design, offered only fleeting glimpses, a desk, some curious trinkets, a glimpse of the sorting hat. But on the page, it became a museum of wizarding history and a living archive of Hogwarts itself, the sort of place where even standing still felt like stepping into the bloodstream of the castle. The walls, towering and circular, were entirely covered with portraits of former headmasters and headmistresses, each painted in such lifelike detail that they did more than watch. They conversed, whispered, dozed, and offered unsolicited advice. Phineas Nigellus Black, perhaps the most vocal of them, often injected sarcasm into the proceedings, making his disdain for Gryffindor students perfectly clear. They were not silent relics, but thinking, talking fragments of history. J.K. Rowling described them as able to leave their own frames and visit other portraits, meaning they could act as messengers, couriers of information between past and present. A single request from Dumbledore could send a portrait rushing to another office miles away to deliver instructions, a detail never shown in the films but essential to understanding the subtle web of communication that kept Hogwarts running. These portraits were more than ornamental honor rolls. They carried the counsel of centuries. Armando Dippet, who preceded Dumbledore, could speak to events in the school from the early 20th century, while Dilys Derwent, a celebrated healer and former headmistress, had a portrait both in the office and at St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. Through her, information could flow between the school and the Wizarding World's primary hospital instantly. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, it was through such portraits that urgent messages were sent in moments of crisis, bypassing the need for owls or flu powder. This ability to act as living conduits of history gave the office an atmosphere of continual presence, the sense that all the leaders of Hogwarts were still, in some way, running the school together. Beyond the portraits, the headmaster's office housed artifacts so steeped in legend that they might as well have been myth. At the forefront was the sword of Godric Gryffindor, gleaming with rubies set in its hilt. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry first saw it when Dumbledore took it from its glass case to confirm its identity. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that out of the hat, Dumbledore said, a moment that hinted at the deep enchantment woven into the sword's metal. It was goblin-made, able to absorb substances that made it stronger. Hence the basilisk venom it took in during Harry's second year. In the films, the sword appears at crucial moments, but the sense of it as a permanent fixture in the office, patiently waiting for the worthy, was diminished. Another artifact of singular power was the pensieve, known in some translations as the dumasum. This shallow stone basin, engraved with runes and filled with a silvery liquid, allowed a wizard to view and even enter another's memories. Dumbledore used it both as a teaching tool and a personal aid, storing thoughts too numerous to keep in his mind at once. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry found himself peering into it without permission, plunging into scenes from Dumbledore's past investigations. The films retained the basin's visual beauty but underplayed the depth of its role in connecting the headmaster to the hidden truths of the wizarding world. In the books, it was not just a magical curiosity. It was a working archive of witness testimony, a device for understanding motives, and a means to piece together history. The sorting hat, another constant resident, also lived here when not in use during the welcoming feast. Far from being stored away carelessly, it sat on a shelf as an active advisor to the headmaster. It remembered the founders personally and could share their perspectives, offering Dumbledore insight rooted in the very founding of the school. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it was from the headmaster's office that the hat was summoned to appear in the climactic battle, delivering Godric's sword to Neville Longbottom. Such continuity of purpose was a reminder that the office was both a storage place and a command center, where tools could be dispatched into the school's defense in moments of peril. The shelves and tables held many more mysterious objects whose purposes were never fully explained, and in some cases deliberately obscured. Faux glasses, delicate instruments measuring magical disturbances, and intricate devices that emitted strange puffs of smoke or ran with shifting sands were scattered throughout the room. One could imagine Dumbledore moving among them in quiet contemplation, each instrument revealing some hidden truth about events inside or outside the castle. Rowling often allowed these objects to appear in the background of a scene, never clarifying their use, but hinting that the headmaster's vigilance extended far beyond what students could see. What the films missed most, however, was the sensation of layered time within those walls. When Harry sat in the office, he was never alone with just Dumbledore. He was in the company of Dilys Derwent, who might recall healing a student from a cursed wound in 1724. Phineas Nigellus, who could report on the political tensions in the wizarding world during his tenure, and Everard, whose portrait hung in the Ministry of Magic as well, ready to eavesdrop on official proceedings. The headmaster's office was not simply a place for present leadership, but a council chamber where past leaders still served, their loyalty bound to Hogwarts, Beyond Death. Number 17, Astronomy, Tower. A window to the magical universe, high above the sprawling grounds of Hogwarts, the Astronomy Tower stood as the tallest point of the castle, its stone walls touched by the wind from every direction. By day it seemed a quiet sentinel, almost forgotten amidst the bustle of the courtyard and the great hall. But at night, when the rest of the castle dimmed into flickering torchlight, the tower came alive with a hum of whispered calculations, the slow turning of brass telescopes, and the faint scratching of quills on parchment. This was the heart of one of Hogwarts' most enduring traditions, astronomy, the one subject every single student from first year to seventh was required to take. In the films it appeared only in fleeting shadows and in moments of dramatic tension, but in the books it was a place of learning, of ritual, and of connection to a world far beyond the castle walls. The subject itself was steeped in the rhythms of the magical universe. The classes, led by Professor Aurora Sinistra, were held at midnight each Wednesday, when the air was at its crispest and the constellations were at their clearest. Students climbed the narrow spiral staircase in a slow procession, each carrying parchment, ink, and a well-polished telescope. They emerged onto the circular platform of the tower, where the night stretched endlessly above them, every star a pinprick of light in an ocean of black velvet. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the tower is described as having the best view of the night sky in the whole castle, and there is a sense that stepping onto its open balcony brought students into contact with something far older and more mysterious than magic wands or enchanted portraits. Professor Sinistra, though mentioned only briefly in the series, had a reputation among students for her calm but exacting presence. She guided them through the slow work of mapping constellations, instructing them to align the telescope's eye to the easternmost star of Orion's belt, or to note the shift of Mars in the sky. The films, in their rush for action, skipped over the quiet intensity of these lessons, but the books hinted at the beauty and discipline involved. Hermione Granger, with her meticulous handwriting, was known to draw star charts so precise that Sinistra used them as examples for younger students. Ron Weasley, by contrast, often found his parchment smeared with ink where he had dozed off over his telescope in the cold. Astronomy in the wizarding world was not merely a matter of naming constellations, it was an essential part of magical education. Certain potions required the collection of ingredients at specific lunar phases. The alignment of planets could influence the effectiveness of spells. Even Professor Trelawney's divination lessons sometimes drew on astronomical data, weaving predictions from the paths of comets or the return of certain stars to particular positions. One memorable moment in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix shows Harry and his classmates taking their astronomy OWL on the tower at midnight, meticulously charting the night sky, while the dark outlines of the Forbidden Forest loomed in the distance. That same exam night also reveals the tower's other, more ominous side. As Harry struggled to focus on the trajectory of Jupiter, he spotted movement on the grounds below. Dolores Umbridge and several ministry officials confronting Professor McGonagall in a scene that ended with McGonagall being struck down by stunning spells. The Astronomy Tower, in this instance, became a silent witness to the politics and violence encroaching on Hogwarts. It was not just a place of study, it was a vantage point from which the tides of the larger wizarding war could sometimes be glimpsed. The films did use the tower for one of their most dramatic and heartbreaking scenes, the death of Albus Dumbledore in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. In that moment, the astronomy tower's height and isolation became symbolic, a place apart from the rest of the castle where fate played out in cold moonlight. Yet this cinematic choice, while powerful, eclipsed the tower's original academic significance. For viewers who had not read the books, the astronomy tower became merely the place where Dumbledore died, rather than the place where generations of witches and wizards learned to read the stars. In the day-to-day life of a Hogwarts student, astronomy classes could be grueling. Winter lessons meant hours spent in freezing air, with only a cloak and perhaps a warming charm for comfort. Students often complained of numb fingers and ink blots caused by shivering hands, but there was a quiet pride in completing a perfect star chart. Knowing that the patterns drawn that night matched those charted centuries before by other Hogwarts pupils. It was a thread of continuity linking every student, from the first founders to the present day. Harry's own relationship with the class was tinged with distraction. Though capable of the work, he often found his mind wandering to Quidditch matches or the latest trouble brewing in the castle. Still, the moments he spent on the tower could be unexpectedly grounding. After the Triwizard Tournament's first task, when his nerves still buzzed from facing the Hungarian Horntail, a late-night astronomy lesson offered him a rare moment of calm. Just the steady movement of stars across the sky, the scrape of quill on parchment, and the slow turning of telescope gears. For Hermione, astronomy was a natural extension of her love for precision and knowledge. She once stayed on the tower long after class had ended, double-checking the position of Venus for an extra credit assignment. Professor Sinistra later commented that Hermione had the eye of a seasoned chart maker, a rare compliment from the reserved professor. These small details, absent from the films, painted the astronomy tower as a place where individual strengths and passions could quietly flourish. Number 18, Owl Post, Magical Logistics. In the high towers of Hogwarts, far above the moving staircases and echoing corridors, there exists a place that the films barely touch, a vast circular stone chamber known as the Owlery. Here, hundreds of owls roost in niches carved into the walls, each one a master of magical navigation, capable of finding any witch or wizard no matter how far they've travelled. The air is always filled with the rustle of wings, the sound of sharp talons clicking against stone, and the occasional soft hoot echoing through the rafters. The floor is layered with straw and feathers, and the smell of owl droppings clings to the air, something the books never tried to romanticize. Yet this unassuming place is the beating heart of Hogwarts' communication with the outside world, a system so precise and enchanted that it has never failed, unless, of course, someone wanted it to. It is a logistical miracle disguised as a simple animal service. Each owl knows its recipient instinctively, as if letters carry more than ink, perhaps a trace of the sender's magic, a signature that only the owl can read. When Harry first arrives at Hogwarts, his understanding of the system is limited to his own snowy owl, Hedwig, gifted to him by Hagrid on his 11th birthday. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Rowling describes how Hedwig soared out of the window into the night, and Harry watched until she was a speck against the moon. This was no ordinary post. Letters were not left to the mercy of human postal services. They were entrusted to creatures with an innate sense of direction and an unbreakable loyalty to their chosen humans. The Owlery is more than just a depot. It is a gathering place for students seeking privacy, a place where whispered confessions can hide beneath the flutter of wings. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, when Harry secretly writes to Sirius about the nightmares plaguing him, he climbs the icy steps to the Owlery before dawn, knowing the stillness of the morning will keep his errand hidden. Owls can be discreet, slipping away through the frost-laden air without drawing the attention of curious eyes. This ability makes them invaluable not only for ordinary letters, but for carrying forbidden items, shrunken parcels. Concealed under feathers, coded messages written in disappearing ink, or tiny vials tucked into protective wrappings. The scale of the operation is something the films never truly conveyed. The books hint at the constant traffic of owls entering and leaving the school, especially during mornings when the Great Hall becomes a flurry of feathers as post is delivered over breakfast. In Philosopher's Stone, Rowling paints the scene vividly. 100 owls streamed in through the open windows, circling the hall, dropping letters and packages onto the students' laps. This was not the quaint trickle of messages seen on screen, but a daily spectacle, a visible sign of the school's connection to the wider wizarding world. In those moments, Hogwarts felt less like an isolated castle and more like a living hub in a vast network of magical correspondence. Each owl in the owlery has its own personality and quirks. Some are swift and businesslike, delivering their post with no more than a cursory nip before departing again. Others, like Hedwig, are affectionate and proud, often waiting patiently for a reply before returning to their perch. There are elderly owls who move slower, used for shorter deliveries, and powerful great greys reserved for long-distance flights that may span continents. The variety is not random. Professor McGonagall herself is known to have assigned certain owls for specific students if the delivery was urgent or particularly sensitive. This layer of organization ensures that even in the chaos of hundreds of messages, nothing is lost. Owls are not infallible, yet their failures are rare and often deliberate. In Order of the Phoenix, Harry's correspondence with Sirius is intercepted, not because the owls are careless, but because ministry officials had placed surveillance charms to monitor communications. The magical logistics of Owl Post can be compromised by enchantments that block or redirect letters, and yet even then the loyalty of certain owls to their owners has been known to circumvent such obstacles. Hedwig herself once returned injured after delivering a message, a silent testament to the dangers that come with carrying news others wish to suppress. One of the most intriguing aspects of the owl system is its ability to locate people whose whereabouts are unknown even to the sender. In Goblet of Fire, when Sirius is hiding, Harry has no address, no clue where to send his letters. Still, Hedwig finds him, navigating through secrecy and danger to deliver each message. This magical homing ability is never explained outright, but it suggests that owls are attuned to the magical signature of individuals, able to trace it through protective charms, disillusionment spells, and even across oceans. It is a skill that elevates them beyond mere animals. They are, in many ways, magical creatures with their own form of intelligence. The owlery itself is enchanted to withstand the constant comings and goings of its inhabitants. The high windows remain open year-round, regardless of weather, yet the interior never floods or freezes. Snow drifts in during the winter, scattering across the straw without melting until the sun rises, while in the summer a breeze flows through to keep the air fresh. The walls are covered in perches of varying heights, from low racks for younger owls to the dizzying rafters where the largest birds nest. Students quickly learn to wear boots when visiting. The stone floor is perpetually slick with straw, droppings, and the remains of owl pellets. For first years, their first trip to the owlery is often a moment of quiet awe. The realization that this tower is the invisible thread connecting them to home, be it a bustling wizarding household or a muggle family who can only wonder how letters arrive so quickly, is profound. For Harry, it is also a symbol of independence. With Hedwig, he could reach out to people who cared about him without relying on the Dursleys, without the fear of his words being twisted or withheld. It is telling that in the darkest moments of his life at Privet Drive, Hedwig was his most constant companion. Not all uses of the owlery are innocent. Fred and George Weasley were known to use Owl Post to smuggle experimental joke products to interested buyers long before they officially opened Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. Lee Jordan once sent an entire box of dung bombs via Owl to a student in another school, each parcel carefully charmed to avoid bursting mid-flight. In such cases, the owls are simply messengers. They neither question nor judge the contents they carry. This neutrality makes them ideal for clandestine activities, whether noble or mischievous. The magical community's reliance on owl post also speaks to a deeper cultural tradition. Unlike Muggle postmen or telephones, owl delivery is personal. Every letter is carried by a living creature who forms a bond with the sender. This intimacy can make receiving a letter feel more meaningful. A note from a friend, delivered by an owl that has crossed mountains and forests to find you, carries a weight that an impersonal delivery service never could. The act of tying a message to an owl's leg, watching it vanish into the horizon, becomes a ritual of trust. In emergencies, the owl system can operate at astonishing speeds. A well-trained barn owl can deliver a message across the country in less than a day, navigating both by instinct and magical currents that speed their flight. The Ministry of Magic has its own fleet of trained owls for official correspondence, but even they admit that the Hogwarts system is among the most efficient. This is partly due to the sheer variety of birds. Having a large enough pool ensures that there is always a fresh, rested owl ready for long-haul deliveries. The films reduce this intricate network to fleeting moments, Hedwig gliding through a snowy sky, or a single owl dropping a letter in the Great Hall. These scenes, while beautiful, strip away the complexity, the constant bustle, and the underlying magic that make the system so remarkable. In reality, Hogwarts Owlery is a living, breathing logistics hub, its success built on centuries of trust between humans and owls. Every delivery, whether it is a single parchment or a bulky package, is part of an unbroken chain of communication that binds the castle to the outside world. There is something profoundly symbolic about this hidden corner of Hogwarts. It is a reminder that the magical world thrives on connection, not just through grand gestures of spellcraft or epic battles, but through the quiet, reliable service of creatures who ask for nothing more than care and companionship in return. For every letter Harry sent, for every secret Sirius received, there was an owl cutting silently through the clouds, carrying not just words, but the reassurance that no one at Hogwarts was ever truly alone. Number 19, the Hospital Wing and Madame Pomfrey's skill. In the world of Hogwarts, there is a place that rarely gets the glory it deserves, yet it has saved the lives and limbs of countless students. The Hospital Wing, hidden beyond the main corridors, is a sanctuary where pain turns into relief, and where one formidable witch quietly becomes a hero. Madame Poppy Pomfrey, the school's matron, is not the sort of character who boasts about her skill or seeks recognition, yet her record as a healer is unmatched. The films treat her as a background figure, appearing briefly during Quidditch injuries or the aftermath of some chaos, but in the books she emerges as a guardian who sees everything, fixes everything, and lectures with a precision as sharp as any curse. Rowling writes her with an unshakable sense of authority, and that is what makes her presence vital. It is easy to forget that Hogwarts is not a safe school. The subjects themselves are dangerous, charms that can backfire, potions that can explode, magical creatures with teeth sharper than swords. A simple wand movement done incorrectly can result in burnt eyebrows, swollen limbs, or skin that turns an alarming shade of purple. Pomfrey handles all of these without hesitation. She is as comfortable mending broken bones as she is reversing a transfiguration accident gone wrong. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, she deals with Harry's completely vanished arm bones after Gilderoy Lockhart's disastrous attempt at a healing spell. Instead of panic, her reaction is firm and practical. "You should have come straight to me. I can mend bones in an instant, but growing them back..." That small moment shows her calm in the face of magical catastrophe and her authority over all others when it comes to health. The art of magical healing is not simply about casting a spell and moving on. Pomfrey must know the complex interaction of potions, charms, and counter-curses. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, after Harry's confrontation with the Hungarian Horntail, his injuries are extensive: burns, cuts, and exhaustion from magical strain. Pomfrey's methods are detailed in the book. She applies a foul-smelling paste for burns, uses Skelegro for internal damage, and strictly limits visitors to keep the patient undisturbed. This is medical strategy in the wizarding world, tailored for dangers most healers never face. She treats not just the injury, but the magical residue that lingers in wounds, something the films never explore. Her hospital wing is not merely a place of treatment, it is a symbol of order amid chaos. Every bed is perfectly made, every potion bottle labeled with precision. The smell of antiseptic potion hangs in the air, mixed with the faint sweetness of dittany. Students who end up here often do so after reckless acts, and Pomfrey has little patience for repeated visitors. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, when Harry falls from his broom during the Quidditch match against Hufflepuff, she not only heals him, but orders the entire Gryffindor team out with an authority that brooks no argument. This is the balance she maintains, compassion combined with strict control. One of her most remarkable qualities is her discretion. She treats injuries without prying into the details that the staff might prefer to keep quiet. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, after Katie Bell is cursed by the opal necklace, Pomfrey works tirelessly to stabilize her until she can be transferred to St. Mungo's. The narration shows her working with urgency, but without theatrics. She respects the privacy of her patients and the dangerous realities of Hogwarts life. The films reduce this to a passing mention, missing the quiet intensity of her role. Pomfrey's work is not only reactive, but preventive. In the books, she conducts annual checks, ensures the antidote cupboard is always stocked, and anticipates the seasonal outbreaks of wizarding ailments like spattergroit. She even finds herself patching up the staff. In Order of the Phoenix, after the Weasley twins' fireworks display causes chaos, she spends hours removing burns and singed eyebrows. Her efficiency here underlines a truth: Hogwarts would collapse without her constant, invisible labor. Her medical skill is rivaled only by her moral stance. Pomfrey refuses to discharge a student before she is certain they are fully recovered, even under pressure from the headmaster or ministry officials. When Dumbledore needs Harry urgently, she allows it, but makes her disapproval clear. "They are not leaving until I say so," she insists in the Philosopher's Stone after Harry's first-year ordeal. That single line tells us she sees herself as the ultimate authority over her patients' welfare. Even Dumbledore cannot override her medical judgment lightly. The hospital wing also serves as a place of emotional recovery, though Pomfrey does not coddle her patients. In The Goblet of Fire, after Cedric Diggory's death, she tends to Harry, who is in shock and covered in minor injuries. She does not press him for details, sensing that the wounds go far deeper than the physical. Her skill here lies in understanding that magical medicine cannot fix grief, but rest and safety can create a space for healing to begin. The films, focused on spectacle, strip away these quieter, more human moments. There is also the fascinating detail of her adaptability. Hogwarts is a school where each year brings entirely different threats: a basilisk in the plumbing, dementors on the grounds, a tri-wizard tournament with dragons. Pomfrey never falters. In Chamber of Secrets, when Hermione is accidentally transformed into a half-cat after drinking polyjuice potion brewed with cat hair, Pomfrey treats her without scorn or disbelief. The description in the book paints Pomfrey as unfazed, though clearly annoyed. It is just another Tuesday at Hogwarts. Her tolerance for the bizarre is perhaps as critical as her ability to heal. Her Skilligrew treatment of Harry's arm is one of the most vivid examples of magical healing's unpleasant side. Rowling spares no detail in describing how regrowing bones is a painful, sleepless process, with Harry's arm feeling like jelly for hours. Pomfrey monitors him closely through the night, making sure the process is proceeding correctly. This patience and commitment is absent in the film adaptation, where the incident is played for humor rather than medical drama. Pomfrey's role becomes even more crucial during large-scale emergencies. In The Half-Blood Prince, when Death Eaters infiltrate the castle, the aftermath sees her tending to multiple injured students and staff. The sheer scale of her task, burns from curses, unconscious victims of stunning spells and hexes with lingering after-effects is overwhelming, yet she works through the night. This is a wartime healer's skill, one that goes far beyond the routine bumps and bruises of school life. Another overlooked aspect is her rapport with the staff. While she respects the chain of command, she does not hesitate to challenge decisions she deems dangerous. When teachers bring in injured students from the Forbidden Forest, she often voices her opinion that such excursions should never be allowed. This protective instinct marks her as more than a healer. She is a guardian of the school's most vulnerable, and she shoulders that responsibility without complaint. Even her sternness has purpose. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione appear in the hospital wing after one of their many dangerous escapades, she scolds them relentlessly. This is not mere irritation, it is a deliberate act to make them think twice next time. In The Order of the Phoenix, after the battle in the Department of Mysteries, she treats their numerous injuries but still manages to remind them that they are far too young to be sustaining such wounds. It is an odd form of care, but deeply effective. Pomfrey's dedication also comes through in her refusal to leave during crises. When the Battle of Hogwarts erupts in Deathly Hallows, she transforms the hospital wing into a triage centre, with cots spilling into the corridors. She treats curses, broken bones, and burns side by side, working without rest. The image of her moving between patients with calm precision while chaos roars outside captures her true essence. A healer whose courage is as steady as any fighter on the battlefield. Ultimately, the absence of Madame Pomfrey's depth in the films removes an important thread from the tapestry of Hogwarts life. In the books, she is the quiet constant in a castle of shifting dangers, the one who ensures that the next morning, after the explosions and duels, students wake up in their beds, whole, safe, and sometimes a little wiser. Her mastery of magical medicine, her moral backbone, and her unflinching dedication to her patients make her one of the unsung pillars of the school. While the films show her briefly at the edge of the frame, the books remind us that without Madame Pomfrey, the story of Hogwarts would be far shorter and far more tragic. Number 20, The Great Hall and its Enchanted Ceiling. The enchanted ceiling of the Great Hall is one of the most quietly magical features in all of Hogwarts, yet, for many who only know the films, it remains little more than a beautiful backdrop. In the books, J.K. Rowling made it a living part of the castle's atmosphere, a seamless blend of magic and nature that breathed alongside the students and professors. The ceiling was enchanted to reflect the weather outside the castle walls, no matter how wild, serene, or otherworldly. It could shift from a dazzling crystalline blue on a bright morning to a roiling mass of black clouds during a thunderstorm. It was not merely decoration, it was a connection between the indoors and the vast Scottish skies. Professor Dumbledore once casually reminded the students the ceiling of the Great Hall has been bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history. Those words, quietly placed in the first book, hinted at a deep layer of Hogwarts charm that the films barely brushed against. What most readers might not realize is that this enchantment was said to have been invented by Helga Hufflepuff herself, one of the 4 founders of the school. Known for her warmth and her love of community, Helga wanted the Great Hall to feel like a gathering place where the outside world was never shut away. On stormy nights, the flicker of candlelight against sheets of rain brought comfort to weary students. On clear evenings, the ceiling revealed a blanket of stars that made even the most homesick child feel as though they were looking out a window to home. The founders built many marvels into the castle, but this ceiling was a quiet act of care, a reminder that no matter how intense the studying or how heavy the snow outside, the beauty of the world was always present above them. Rowling's description of Harry's first glimpse of the Great Hall captures this perfectly. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles that were floating in mid-air over 4 long tables. The ceiling was velvety black and dotted with stars. Harry noticed that it was the same outside. The night sky was clear and sprinkled with stars. This mirrored reality was more than a visual trick. It was a tether to the real sky, as if Hogwarts wanted to remind its students they were part of something larger than themselves. This attention to magical realism is where the books gave the Great Hall a soul, and why the absence of its explanation in the films leaves something quietly missing. There were times when the enchanted ceiling became more than a mirror to the outside weather. During the Halloween feast in Harry's first year, the sky above the Great Hall swirled with storm clouds, illuminated by the jagged flash of magical lightning. It wasn't only an echo of the weather, it was enhanced, stylized, made part of the celebration itself. Pumpkins the size of boulders glowed warmly below, and the interplay of their orange light with the ominous sky created an unforgettable contrast. This was the Great Hall not merely reflecting nature, but weaving it into the rhythm Hogwarts life. The enchantment also played a role during Christmas feasts, when the ceiling transformed into a winter wonderland. Snow drifted down from above, sparkling as it fell, but it never melted onto the tables or touched the students. This delicate illusion turned every Christmas dinner into something dreamlike. Hermione once explained to Harry in Prisoner of Azkaban that the charm was highly advanced. It required a precise layering of illusions so that the snow seemed to fall endlessly without ever accumulating. Such magic was the work of the Founders' era, when grand enchantments were woven to last centuries. One particular moment stands out in the books, though the films overlooked it entirely. In Order of the Phoenix, after the news of Sirius Black's death, the ceiling over the end-of-year feast reflected a pale, overcast sky. It was as if the castle itself mourned. The subdued light dimmed the usually golden warmth of the hall, casting long shadows across the faces of the students. Here, the ceiling became a participant in the mood of the school, not just a decorative charm. The films missed this emotional nuance, and without it, the Great Hall's ability to echo the spirit of the moment is lost to the casual viewer. The technical nature of the enchantment was itself fascinating. The ceiling was not just a flat projection, it had depth. Looking up into it gave the sense of gazing into infinite space, as if the roof had melted away and left the students under open sky. Helga Hufflepuff's spellwork was rumoured to weave threads of magic into the very stones of the castle roof, binding it permanently to the weather patterns around the Hogwarts grounds. This bond meant that when fog rolled across the lake, it would also drift silently across the ceiling of the Great Hall, swirling between the hovering candles. In Hogwarts, a history, the ceiling's enchantment is described as one of the oldest and most enduring magical works in the school, surviving countless repairs, curses, and alterations without losing its integrity. It withstood centuries of magical duels, an attack by a rogue Welsh green dragon in the late 14th century, and even the occasional Weasley fireworks explosion. Its resilience was a testament to the skill of the founders and to the idea that some magic was meant to be lived with every single day, not just reserved for rare occasions. One could argue that the absence of its explanation in the films robs viewers of understanding the Great Hall as the beating heart of Hogwarts. In the books, meals were more than times to eat. They were daily ceremonies where the entire student body gathered under the sky, sharing not just food, but the shared experience of weather and season. Whether rain lashed the invisible roof or the moon hung high and silver, the hall was always more than four walls and a floor. It was alive, shifting and breathing with the rhythm of the world outside. Even during moments of crisis, the ceiling remained true to its nature. In Half-Blood Prince, on the night Dumbledore died, the ceiling reflected a deep, bruised purple sky, heavy with clouds. The weight of the air above seemed to press down on everyone in the room, magnifying the grief and shock. This wasn't an accident. It was the magic's response to the collective mood of the castle. The Great Hall had become, in essence, an emotional barometer. The way the ceiling worked also reflected Hogwarts' philosophy as a school. It wasn't about shutting students away from the world. It was about preparing them to face it. Seeing a thunderstorm rage above while you ate breakfast reminded you that magic was not separate from nature, it was part of it. The founders understood that students would grow in both skill and character by feeling the turn of the seasons every day, even from indoors. It was Helga Hufflepuff's way of teaching resilience without a single spoken lesson. The films did show the ceiling briefly, floating candles, a starry night or a gentle snowfall, but without the context, these moments became mere set design. A viewer might assume it was just a magically open roof or a decorative spell done for special occasions. They wouldn't know that this enchantment had been maintained for nearly 1,000 years, a constant presence in the lives of generations of witches and wizards. They wouldn't know that it was one of the few parts of Hogwarts that had remained unchanged since the founders' time. One particularly beautiful detail from the books that never made it to the screen was the way the ceiling responded to dawn. On early mornings, before the sun rose above the mountains, the entire hall would be washed in a faint grey-blue light. As the first rays of sunlight touched the lake, the sky above would flush with pinks and golds, the light sliding over the floating candles and across the gleaming plates. For students facing long days of classes, this moment was a small piece of peace, a reminder that every day began with beauty. When Harry attended his final feast after the Battle of Hogwarts, the ceiling was not in its usual pristine form. The castle had suffered damage, and part of the enchantment was flickering. Patches of ceiling showed the real scorched stone, while others displayed a pale, quiet sky. It was as if the great hall itself was wounded, and yet, even in that broken state, the magic held on enough to let students see that the storm outside had passed. The symbolism was clear. Hogwarts endured, and so did its sky. The enchanted ceiling remains one of the most poetic examples of how Rowling built Hogwarts into a living character. It listened, it reflected, it participated in the lives of the people who walked beneath it. The films may have shown glimpses of its beauty, but without the book's details, the audience loses the knowledge that this ceiling was not just decoration. It was the castle's way of keeping its people connected to the world, the weather, and the turning of the seasons. It was Helga Hufflepuff's gift, given not for power or spectacle, but for comfort and belonging, and it is through the pages of the books that we can truly understand its magic. Number 21, Hogsmeade, a privilege for older students. In the world of Harry Potter, Hogwarts is the center of magic and mystery, yet just beyond its snowy grounds lies a place that holds an equally special kind of enchantment. This place is Hogsmeade, the only entirely wizarding village in Britain, hidden among the rolling hills and glittering frost of Scotland. What many who have only seen the films may not realize is that Hogsmeade is not open to all Hogwarts students. It is a privilege reserved for those in their third year or above, a reward that marks a subtle rite of passage in a young witch or wizard's life. The permission slip signed by a parent or guardian might seem like a mere piece of parchment, but for a student, it is the key to a world where magic meets everyday life, where shops and streets hold stories as old as the castle itself. The films give us glimpses of this village, a brief flash of the Three Broomsticks' warm glow or the shadow of the shrieking shack against the snow, but the books paint a far richer picture. In Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban, Rowling lingers on the details, the snow falling thick and fast, the muffled sound of footsteps on the cobblestones, and the tang of cold air mixing with the scent of butterbeer. Harry, Ron, and Hermione's first proper visit together is not just an outing, it is a moment where they step into the adult world, tasting the independence that Hogwarts life otherwise keeps at bay. The exclusivity of this privilege is important. It shapes the atmosphere of Hogsmeade into something slightly forbidden for the younger years, something to aspire to and dream about. One of the most famous spots in Hogsmeade is Honeyduke's, the sweet shop whose windows seem to groan under the weight of magical confections. The films show its bright interior, but they never quite capture the sensory overload Rowling describes. In the book, The place is a maze of shelves and barrels, with jars of acid pops and fizzing whizbees stacked high, boxes of Bertie Bott's every flavour beans rattling on the counter, and the unforgettable smell of chocolate wafting through the air. It is in Honeydukes' cellar that Harry finds the entrance to one of the castle's secret passages, a hidden route that becomes vital when he has no permission to visit Hogsmeade officially. This detail, so rich in the book, disappears almost entirely from the films, robbing the village of one of its cleverest connections to Hogwarts' hidden architecture. Then there is the Three Broomsticks, the cosy pub run by Madame Rosmerta, who has a curvy figure and a warm smile for the students who come in to escape the cold. The butterbeer here is described as a little bit like less sickly butterscotch, warming the drinker from the inside out. In Prisoner of Azkaban, the Three Broomsticks becomes a stage for one of the series' most important overheard conversations when Harry learns the truth about Sirius Black from Cornelius Fudge and Professor McGonagall. In the films, this scene is moved elsewhere, stripping the pub of its role as both a safe haven and a place where dangerous truths can accidentally slip into young ears. Hogsmeade in the books is alive with these subtle contradictions, comfort and danger, innocence and hidden menace. Another shop the films all but ignore is Dervish and Bang's, a place selling and repairing magical equipment. Though it is not as glamorous as Honeydukes or as warm as the Three Broomsticks, it plays a part in showing the practical side of wizard life. Here, students might find sneakerscopes, self-stirring cauldrons, or a new set of brass scales. These small shops make Hogsmeade feel lived in, a functioning village rather than a decorative backdrop. The omission of such places in the films reduces the richness of the world. Without them, Hogsmeade becomes merely a seasonal postcard instead of a breathing community. The shrieking shack looms on the edge of the village, its boarded-up windows and rotting roof a sharp contrast to the cheer of the high street. The films show its exterior briefly, but they do not convey the weight of its reputation among Hogwarts students. In the books, it is the most haunted building in Britain, a place so feared that no one dares to approach. The truth, as revealed in Prisoner of Azkaban, is that its haunting is a carefully crafted illusion created to hide the howls of a young Remus Lupin during his transformations. This history gives the shack a depth that goes beyond a spooky landmark. It is a monument to friendship, sacrifice, and the quiet kindness of a headmaster who went to great lengths to protect a student. In the films, this layered meaning is all but lost. Even the village's seasonal traditions are different in the books. During the run-up to Christmas, Hogsmeade is a swirl of enchanted snowflakes, holly wreaths on shop doors, and the smell of roasting chestnuts drifting from street vendors. Students come back to the castle, carrying parcels wrapped in shimmering paper, their cheeks flushed from the cold. These moments do more than set a festive mood. They root the story in the everyday magic of the wizarding world, a reminder that not every enchanted moment is tied to a battle with dark forces. The films, while visually stunning in their winter scenes, miss these smaller, slower rhythms of life. One of the most charming yet overlooked elements is the secretive way some students manage to visit Hogsmeade without permission. Fred and George Weasley naturally are masters of this art, using the Marauder's map to guide them through hidden passages. Harry, lacking a signed permission slip in his third year, follows in their footsteps by using the Honeydukes' cellar route. In the books, this becomes a thrilling subplot, blending the thrill of mischief with the risk of being caught. It also allows Harry to experience Hogsmeade in a way that feels earned, each visit a gamble that adds tension to the otherwise cozy setting. Hogsmeade is also the backdrop for some darker moments. In Goblet of Fire, the village's cheerful atmosphere is pierced when Harry meets with Sirius in his animagus form, discussing the ominous events unfolding at Hogwarts. The isolation of the snowy streets and the privacy of a secluded spot outside the Three Broomsticks give their conversation a sense of urgency and secrecy. Such scenes remind us that Hogsmeade is not immune to the shadows creeping over the wizarding world. Its charm makes the intrusion of danger all the more jarring. The connection between Hogsmeade and the broader wizarding society is also stronger in the books. The village is where Hogwarts students brush shoulders with adult witches and wizards who live beyond the protective walls of the school. It is a reminder that the wizarding world extends far beyond the castle, with its own politics, gossip, and hidden tensions. In the films, this sense of connection is minimal, reducing the village to a student hangout rather than a vital link to the larger magical community. Even the journey to Hogsmeade carries meaning. In the books, the walk down the path from Hogwarts through the snow or autumn leaves is described with care. It is a transition from the structured world of classes and rules to a freer, more unpredictable space. This journey is part of the ritual, marking the psychological shift from student life to a taste of independence. The absence of this in the films means viewers miss a key emotional beat that deepens the sense of growth and change in the characters. Madame Puddifoot's tea shop, barely mentioned in the films, is another example of the village's variety. This frilly, over-decorated cafe becomes the site of Harry's painfully awkward Valentine's Day date with Cho Chang in Order of the Phoenix. It shows that Hogsmeade is not just about friendship and fun, but also about navigating the confusing social lives of teenagers. Such a scene might not be crucial to the main plot, but it enriches the tapestry of the world, making the characters' lives feel more real and relatable. The film's streamlined approach, while understandable for pacing, misses the point that Hogsmeade's charm lies in its abundance of detail. In the books, it is not a single location or a brief excursion. It is a living, breathing extension of Hogwarts itself. Each shop, street, and snowy rooftop adds a layer to the world building, making the wizarding village feel like a place readers could step into. Without these layers, the Hogsmeade of the films feels incomplete, its magic reduced to a scenic backdrop. When Harry visits Hogsmeade, it is never just about the place. It is about the people he meets there, the secrets exchanged over butterbeer, and the unexpected discoveries tucked away in shadowy corners. Whether it is the shock of overhearing a conversation not meant for his ears, the quiet joy of buying a gift for a friend, or the adrenaline of sneaking through a forbidden passage, each trip carries weight. These moments in the books shape Harry's understanding of the world beyond Hogwarts and give the reader a richer sense of the magic that exists outside the castle walls. For those who know Hogsmeade only from the films, the village may seem like a quaint stopover in the broader story. But in the books, it is a place of independence, tradition, and layered history. A reward for growing older, a hub of community life, and a stage for both light-hearted mischief and pivotal revelations. Its cobblestones have felt the tread of generations of Hogwarts students, each one crossing the invisible threshold between childhood and something just a little more grown up under the watchful gaze of snow-covered rooftops and the ever-present hum of magic. Number 22, Trophy and Memory Halls. In the heart of Hogwarts, far from the lively classrooms and echoing Great Hall, lies a chamber that holds the weight of centuries, a place almost untouched by the films, yet so deeply rooted in the castle's identity that it is mentioned in the pages of the books. The Trophies and Memorials Hall, a long corridor lined with glass-fronted cases, is not merely a storage space for silverware and medals. It is the silent record keeper of the school's proudest and most humbling moments. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry finds himself here during a detention with Filch, tasked with polishing the trophies without magic. It is in this quiet, dust-filled space that the history of Hogwarts breathes, preserved in gleaming metal and engraved names. The walls are a patchwork of glass cases, each holding treasures that speak of triumphs and trials gone by. There are Quidditch cups dating back to the 1600s, their surfaces dulled by time, but still bearing the names of captains who once soared through the air under stormy skies. Among them is the name of a young Minerva McGonagall, recorded for her Quidditch prowess, before a serious fall ended her sporting career. There are also the Inter-House Academic Excellence Shields, awarded for achievements in subjects like potions and transfiguration, the lettering in elegant curls of brass that glint even under the dim torchlight. Each case is like a frozen moment from another era, a reminder that Hogwarts was always more than just a school. It was a legacy. One section of the hall feels heavier, more solemn. Here rest the memorial plaques, dedicated to students and staff who perished in times of danger or war. Some of these names belong to the First and Second Wizarding Wars, others stretch back to the Goblin uprisings and even darker conflicts long before Harry's time. Filch, in his usual sour manner, calls this part of the hall the graveyard without graves, but for those who pause to read, it is a place of quiet reverence. It is said that Dumbledore himself polished the plaque of a former Gryffindor, Elspeth Clearwater, who died defending her classmates from a werewolf attack in the early 20th century. The hall is also home to the legendary Special Services to the School Award, a small golden shield mounted on an oak plaque, awarded to students who have gone far beyond ordinary expectations to protect or enrich Hogwarts. In the books, Harry notices the one awarded to Tom Riddle for special services decades earlier, a haunting irony considering the truth behind that commendation. Another name on that same award is that of Rubeus Hagrid, whose act of heroism during the Battle of Hogwarts earned him his place among the school's champions. These plaques, so modest in size, carry stories that could fill entire volumes of wizarding history. Dust hangs in the air here, disturbed only by the occasional swish of a caretaker's broom or the curious footsteps of a wandering student. The hall is not a place many visit by choice. Even Hermione, whose thirst for knowledge leads her to the library's most remote shelves, admits in the book, "I don't think I've ever stopped to look in here before." But yet for those who do, the reward is the discovery of Hogwarts in its most unguarded form. This is not the grandeur of the Great Hall or the mystery of the Forbidden Forest. It is the quiet pulse of the castle's memory. In one of the farthest cases stands a collection of House Cup trophies, each engraved with the year of victory and the winning house. Some names are so old the language itself feels archaic, filled with spellings no longer in use. For Slytherin, the long list of wins in the early centuries speaks of their dominance in the school's first ages. Hufflepuff's rarer victories seem to shine all the brighter for their infrequency, their years remembered like rare constellations. Ravenclaw's victories often coincide with the awarding of academic shields, a testament to their focus on intellect as much as sport. Gryffindor's names are carved deep into the brass, especially in the years after the Second World War, as if courage itself had been tested and rewarded. On a lower shelf rests an object easy to overlook, a tarnished, dented Gobstone's cup from 1912, won by a boy named Edgar Bones, the great-uncle of Susan Bones. This humble prize tells a story not of grandeur, but of a schoolboy's joy in a simple game. The Bones family, tragically decimated in the First Wizarding War, is thus still present here in the quiet company of the other names. The hall does not judge achievements, it preserves them all equally, whether they changed the course of history or simply brought pride to a house for a single term. Some of the artifacts here are not trophies at all, but curious relics of the school's past contests and traditions. There is a faded house banner from a long-defunct dueling competition, its Gryffindor lion stitched in gold thread that has begun to fray. There is a silver compass awarded to a student for navigating the Black Lake in record time during a 19th century endurance challenge. Even stranger is a small vial of shimmering blue liquid, sealed in glass and labelled Winner, Advanced Potions Experimentation, 1875, its purpose now lost to time. The atmosphere is one of stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of wood or the muffled sounds of life elsewhere in the castle. At night, the trophies seem almost alive, their reflections moving in the torchlight, their surfaces whispering the names engraved upon them. Students who have wandered here after curfew sometimes claim they hear faint echoes, cheers from past victories, the swish of broomsticks, the thud of a quaffle, or even the hush that follows a narrow win. Whether this is magic or imagination, the effect is the same. The hall feels inhabited by its memories. For Harry, polishing these trophies in his second year was an exercise in patience, especially since Filch forbade him from using magic. Yet in those long, tedious hours, he became aware of just how many lives had passed through Hogwarts before him. The name James Potter glinted faintly on a Quidditch cup from the 1970s, a silent reminder of his father's own triumphs. That small connection, hidden among hundreds of others, was not something the films ever showed, yet it tied Harry more deeply to the school's history. The Hall of Trophies and Memories serves as an unspoken link between past and present. It reminds the students that every act, whether brave, clever, or simply persistent, can leave a mark. Even the infamous have their place here. Tom Riddle's name remains untarnished, a testament to the fact that history cannot be rewritten simply because it is uncomfortable. Dumbledore, who believed in remembering even the most painful truths, insisted that no names be removed, for we must know the past to face the future. In times of peace, the hall stands quietly, its cases collecting dust, but during moments of crisis, it has been known to take on a symbolic role. Before the Battle of Hogwarts, some students and staff paused here, tracing their fingers over the names of those who had once stood for the school in their own ways. In that silence, the victories and losses of centuries seemed to merge into one unbroken line of defiance, a reminder that they were part of something larger than themselves. Though absent from the films, this hall is an essential part of the book's vision of Hogwarts. It is a place where time seems to stand still, where generations of students meet in the polished metal and engraved wood. To know Hogwarts is to know this hall, not for its glamour, but for its endurance. In its stillness, it carries the heartbeat of the school, a pulse that has not faltered in 1,000 years. Even the caretakers, so often indifferent to the school's magic, cannot ignore the pull of this place. Filch, in his gruff way, once muttered that the trophies outlast all of us. Perhaps that is the true magic here, not spells or enchantments, but the certainty that every name, no matter how small, becomes part of the castle's story. The Hall of Trophies and Memory is not just a room, it is Hogwarts itself, distilled into silver, brass and glass, holding every triumph and tragedy close, waiting for the next name to be carved into its unending chronicle. Number 23, Magical Portraits, More Than Paintings. In the vast, echoing halls of Hogwarts, where shadows bend with the flicker of torchlight and staircases carry students to unexpected places, there is a quieter kind of magic, one that clings to the walls. It is not the charms of moving staircases or the enchantments woven into the great hall's ceiling, but the knowing eyes in the portraits. These paintings are not mere decorations, nor static representations of long-dead witches and wizards. They breathe, speak, think, and remember. They are sentinels and spies, messengers and mentors. In the films they pass by like colourful props, a muttering monk here, a disgruntled fat lady there, but in the books they are part of the castle's nervous system, the invisible threads connecting its countless secrets. The fat lady, often remembered in the movies only as the whimsical guardian of Gryffindor Tower, is in truth a living lock to the heart of the house. She remembers faces, notices moods, and can be as stubborn as the stone walls around her. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, when Sirius Black slashes her portrait after she refuses him entry, she flees her frame entirely, hiding in another painting in terror. This was not just a whimsical flight, it was survival instinct. The fact that she could abandon her own frame shows a freedom the films never truly explained. Hogwarts portraits are not fixed. They roam the gallery of frames that lace the castle like veins, slipping from painting to painting, sometimes across great distances, carrying words and warnings to those who know how to listen. Albus Dumbledore's portrait, high in the headmaster's office after his death, embodies another truth absent from the movies. These figures can offer genuine counsel, pulling from the memories of their living selves. When Severus Snape becomes headmaster, it is not just Snape's mind at work. Dumbledore's portrait speaks to him, guiding and persuading him in decisions that could decide the fate of the war. "I was merely giving advice, Severus," the portrait says in Deathly Hallows, its painted eyes glinting with purpose. Here lies the unsettling implication, the wisdom, and perhaps the schemes of a headmaster never truly die. Their painted echo remains, able to influence events decades after their physical passing. One of the most striking uses of this magic is Phineas Nigellus Black's portrait. Hung both in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts and in the dusty bedroom at 12 Grimmauld Place, his image acts as a living conduit between locations. The films never show how essential he was to the Order of the Phoenix, carrying messages from Dumbledore to Sirius and back. In the books, he can step from the Hogwarts frame into the Black family home, a power that turns him into a covert courier. "I can take messages between you and the headmaster," Phineas smugly informs Harry in Order of the Phoenix, though he rarely resists adding a sly insult, that he can perform this role without apparating or flu powder makes him an invaluable, if irritating, ally. The artistry behind these portraits is equally mysterious. They are not simply oil on canvas with an incantation. A portrait reflects the personality, memories, and even some of the magical essence of its subject. How much of the person remains is never fully explained, but the books give clues. The subjects can recall events from their lifetime, offer specialized knowledge, and adapt to new situations, yet they are not complete souls. They are echoes, capable of wit and strategy, but lacking the growth of the living. Still, in a place like Hogwarts, an echo can be more than enough to tip the balance between safety and disaster. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry consults a portrait of a former headmaster, Armando Dippet, who recalls Tom Riddle's time at the school. The memory is imperfect, but revealing, offering insight that would otherwise have been lost to history. This is not a passive record. It is history that speaks back, able to respond to the questions of the present. In such moments, the reader realizes that the portraits are a library unto themselves, each frame holding a living page of Hogwarts past. Yet their abilities can be more cunning than helpful. In Order of the Phoenix, the portrait of Walburga Black, bolted to the wall of Grimmauld Place, becomes a shrieking curse of a different sort. Her endless tirades, preserved in paint, are a reminder that personality, even the worst of it, endures in this medium. If a kind and noble headmaster can continue guiding the school after death, so too can a bigoted matriarch continue spewing her venom for decades. It makes the castle's walls a political landscape as much as a magical one, where alliances and grudges can linger as long as the portraits themselves. The security implications are profound. A student sneaking through a forbidden corridor might imagine themselves unseen, only for an old witch in a dusty frame to notice and relay the sighting to a professor 2 floors away. In Prisoner of Azkaban, after the fat lady flees her portrait, the search for Sirius Black is informed not only by living staff but by the whispers and reports of wandering portraits. They are, in effect, Hogwarts' own surveillance network, unseen in their movements, unblinking in their watch. The very movement of the portraits is a spectacle in itself. In Goblet of Fire, when the Triwizard Tournament chaos spills through the castle, portraits gather in clusters to gossip and trade news. This is not simple animation, but a society, a network of relationships spanning centuries of Hogwarts history. A knight in one frame might befriend a shepherdess 3 corridors away, their conversations rippling across stone and canvas alike. The films give us glimpses of these shifting images, but without the depth, one misses the truth. They are as alive in their own world as the students are in theirs. The politics of the portraits are subtle but potent. Phineas Nigellus, for instance, does not obey every request without question. His loyalty is not to the living headmaster alone, but also to his own pride, his own views on the wizarding world. The very fact that a painted image can choose how and when to serve is both a gift and a risk. In times of war, it raises the question, could a portrait betray the castle? The books never fully explore this, but the possibility lingers like a shadow in the stone corridors. Even the way the portraits acquire knowledge is left intriguingly open. Do they overhear conversations in other frames? Can they retain information shared among themselves? The answer seems to be yes, at least in part. When Harry is hidden at Grimmauld Place in Deathly Hallows, Phineas Nigellus knows more about Hogwarts' situation than any of the fugitives in the house, having moved between locations and observed events. This capacity makes them unique. They are witnesses immune to physical harm, beyond the reach of common spells, and capable of slipping through the castle's arteries unseen. Some of the portraits, especially those of past headmasters, seem to act as custodians of Hogwarts' deeper magic. In the headmaster's office, these frames are not decoration, but a council of the dead, offering wisdom from every era of the school's history. They speak to one another, debate, and occasionally grumble, yet their collective memory forms a kind of living archive. When McGonagall becomes headmistress, she inherits not only the room, but its watchful, whispering gallery, a chorus of voices shaped by centuries of teaching and ruling the school. One of the subtler, yet most telling moments comes in Order of the Phoenix, when Dumbledore uses a portrait to send a message to Hagrid in the middle of the night. The swiftness of the delivery, the ease with which the painted messenger slips from one frame to another, shows how deeply integrated they are into the castle's daily functioning. This is not casual magic. It is infrastructure, as essential to Hogwarts as the enchanted staircases or the protective wards around the grounds. Their presence also adds layers to the idea of legacy. A witch or wizard's influence might not end with their death, for their portrait can continue to guide, scold, or inspire new generations. For some, this is a comfort. For others, perhaps a burden. Imagine living under the watchful eyes of a predecessor who can still voice disapproval, who can still remind you of your failures, preserved eternally in paint and magic. The films never show this quiet pressure, but in the books, it is a constant hum in the background of the school's life. Ultimately, the magical portraits of Hogwarts are less like paintings and more like the ghosts of authority, memory, and personality stitched into the very fabric of the castle. They are the keepers of secrets and the bearers of warnings, the hidden network that makes Hogwarts not merely a school, but a living, breathing organism. Without them, the castle would lose not just its watchfulness, but its soul. And though the films glance over their depth, the books reveal the truth. Behind every painted gaze is a mind, a voice, and a will waiting to speak. Number 24. Summer and Winter. Hogwarts. Two different worlds. In the world of Hogwarts, seasons are not just a backdrop. They are an invisible hand that shapes life within the castle walls. The books gave readers glimpses of how time and weather transformed the school, but the films rarely lingered long enough for us to feel the heartbeat of these changes. The truth is, Hogwarts in summer and Hogwarts in winter are two entirely different worlds. One is golden, fragrant, and alive with quiet rhythms. The other is wrapped in silver and shadow, a place where the glow of fireplaces and the bite of the wind conspire to create a magic unlike anything else. Those who have lived there, students and professors alike, speak of it as though the castle itself breathes differently depending on the month. This is not just poetic fancy. The shifting of the seasons alters traditions, routines, and even the way magic feels under the fingertips. Summer Hogwarts begins quietly as the last trains pull away from Hogsmeade Station. By July, the castle is a hushed labyrinth, its echoing corridors filled with the sounds of distant owls and the occasional creak of an ancient stair. It is in these months that Luna Lovegood's greenhouses overflow with strange life. Though never mentioned in the films, her small domain by the herbology wing becomes a sanctuary for rare and delicate plants, species that cannot withstand the harsh chill of Scottish winters. Some bloom only under the high sun, petals opening to reveal cores that hum faintly with stored magic. A few are known to drift slightly off the ground, anchored to the soil only by the thinnest roots. Professors who remain on site during the summer, like Phileas Flitwick and Pomona Sprout, often wander through Luna's rows exchanging quiet observations about specimens they had only read about in centuries-old herbological almanacs. The Black Lake in summer is almost unrecognizable. In the school year, its surface is a dark mirror, restless and cold. But in July and August, the water turns a deep sapphire under the high sun, and the giant squid can often be seen basking near the shallows, tentacles drifting lazily. Professors, freed from the demands of constant teaching, sometimes walk the narrow footpath that encircles the lake. Minerva McGonagall was known to take long, solitary strolls there, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon, as though guarding the castle even in its quietest months. It is said that once, during a particularly warm evening, Rubeus Hagrid brought a barrel of butterbeer down to the shore and shared it with Professor Slughorn, the two of them talking well past sunset about the good old days of Hogwarts. Inside, the summer castle is lit differently. Without the constant presence of hundreds of students, candles burn more slowly, and shafts of sunlight are allowed to spill unbroken across stone floors. The air smells faintly of polish and parchment. Even Peeves seems to soften in these months, his mischief subdued, as though the quiet tempers him. House elves move through the corridors in smaller numbers, often tending to repairs or polishing armor that will gleam in September's return. It is a season of preparation and restoration, of storing magic for the months when storms will rattle the windows and frost will creep along the edges of the great hall's enchanted ceiling. Then comes the transformation. By late November, Hogwarts shifts into winter, as if a spell has been cast over every stone and spire. The first snow arrives not gently but with force, burying the grounds in deep drifts. The forbidden forest grows still, its branches bowed under weight of ice, while the Black Lake freezes over in jagged, silver-edged sheets. The air outside cuts like a blade, yet within the castle, warmth blooms in every common room. Harry once described the Gryffindor fireplace as the heart of the tower, its flames crackling while the wind howled beyond the windows. It was during these months that the castle felt most like home, when laughter echoed off stone walls and the smell of roasting meat drifted up from the kitchens. Winter brought with it traditions the films only hinted at. The Christmas feasts, for example, were not simply a matter of decorated tables. In the books, Harry marveled at the enchanted snowflakes drifting gently from the enchanted ceiling without melting on the plates. The kitchens prepared puddings that steamed in silver bowls, each crowned with sprigs of holly. The professors did not simply sit and eat, they often contributed to the atmosphere themselves. Flitwick was known to conjure elaborate ice sculptures, glittering phoenixes and unicorns that danced along the centre of the tables. Trelawney once decorated her own corner with crystal orbs dusted in frost, claiming they improved her wintry visions. The corridors in winter were something out of legend. Each was lined with towering Christmas trees, their branches heavy with ornaments that sometimes moved of their own accord. The Slytherin dungeons, normally cool and shadowed, glowed with green fairy lights that flickered against the stone walls. The Ravenclaw tower windows offered a view over a white wilderness, the moonlight making the snowfields glisten like powdered diamonds. Students would huddle by the glass to watch the distant lamps of Hogsmeade flicker in the cold night. Snowball fights on the grounds were not simply the province of students. Hagrid occasionally joined in, tossing snowballs the size of quaffles with a booming laugh. Even the professors were not immune. On more than one occasion, a well-aimed charm from Flitwick sent an enchanted snowball floating down a corridor to burst harmlessly against Snape's cloak. The potions master never admitted to enjoying these incidents, but more than one student swore they saw the faintest curl of a smile on his lips. Yet winter also carried a hush that was entirely its own. The great hall in the evenings glowed with golden light, the sound of crackling logs mingling with the faint hum of the enchanted ceiling's snowy sky. For those who stayed at Hogwarts over the holidays, as Harry, Ron, and Hermione once did, the quiet could be profound. The absence of hundreds of voices gave the castle a dreamlike quality, as though it had retreated into a kind of magical hibernation. The library in winter was especially haunting. Madame Pince moved silently among the stacks, the faint dust of frost on the high windows turning the sunlight into muted silver. These seasonal changes were not just aesthetic. They shaped the very rhythm of life in Hogwarts. In summer, magic seemed to hum softly, like a low chord played in the background, a time for growth, study, and quiet work. In winter, it was as though the magic sharpened, growing brighter and more intense, wrapping itself around the students and staff like an unseen cloak. Hermione once remarked that Hogwarts feels like it's holding us closer in the cold months, and even Ron, usually dismissive of such poetic musings, agreed. The films, while visually striking, rarely paused to explore these transformations. Winter was shown briefly in snowy establishing shots, summer almost never at all, but the books made it clear Hogwarts was alive in a way that no single season could capture. The sensory contrasts, the warmth of a butterbeer in December against the cool sweetness of pumpkin juice in June, the scent of pine in a frosted corridor against the perfume of Luna's blooming greenhouses were as much a part of its magic as the moving staircases or talking portraits. The seasonal Hogwarts was also a keeper of private moments. In summer, a young witch might find herself alone in the courtyard at dusk, listening to the gentle splash of the merfolk beyond the lake. In winter, a homesick first year might stumble into the warmth of the library's fireplace and be handed a blanket by Madame Pince herself. These small human experiences wove themselves into the larger tapestry of the castle's history, known only to those who had been there to live them. Hogwarts in summer was a place of open skies and possibility, a quieter stage where professors pursued their own experiments, where rare plants bloomed unseen by most students. Hogwarts in winter was a place of gathering and closeness, of traditions that seemed as ancient as the stones themselves. Each had its own kind of beauty, its own flavour of magic, and together they formed the full heartbeat of the school year. To know one without the other was to know only half the story, a truth the films never quite managed to capture. The changing of seasons in Hogwarts was not just weather, it was a spell, a shifting enchantment that altered everything from the feel of the air to the way footsteps echoed in the halls. Those who knew it well often said that summer and winter at Hogwarts felt like visiting two different worlds, bound together by the same ancient magic. The castle did not merely stand against the seasons, it embraced them, let them shape its moods, and in doing so, shaped the lives of everyone who passed through its gates. Number 25, The Forbidden Forest and its Unseen Inhabitants. The Forbidden Forest in the Harry Potter universe is one of those places where shadows seem deeper, sounds carry strange meanings, and every step could lead to either wonder or disaster. In the films, its role feels significant, but what they show is only a fragment of the truth. The trees you see on screen are crowded with a few familiar dangers: Aragog and his colony of acromantulas, the proud and unpredictable centaurs, the soul-draining dementors in Harry's third year. Yet in the books, this forest breathes with far more life, mystery, and peril than the audience ever truly witnesses. It is a living ecosystem that sprawls so far beyond Hogwarts that even seasoned wizards avoid venturing too deep for fear of encountering what sleeps in the farthest reaches. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Rowling gives the first taste of this depth. The forest, she writes, is dark and creepy, its silence punctuated by snapping twigs and rustling leaves. But beyond the unicorns hunted by Voldemort's wraith-like form, There is mention of creatures that are never seen in the films at all. Herds of wild centaurs move unseen among the trees, their hoofbeats muffled by thick moss. In the shadows, werewolves are whispered to roam on certain nights. Even trolls, creatures normally solitary and mountain-dwelling, have been spotted near the forest's heart. These details hint at a sprawling wild kingdom the films never dared to chart. Hagrid's own words in the books deepen the sense of unknown danger. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, he admits with unusual gravity, "There's things in there the forest's got that even I don't know about, and I've been exploring it for years." Coming from a man who willingly befriends dragons and raises acromantulas from hatchlings, this is not a statement to take lightly. If Hagrid refuses to enter certain areas, it tells us the forest harbours life beyond the comprehension of even the bravest Hogwarts resident. The hippogriffs, introduced in Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban, are another species largely absent from the forest scenes in the films. Buckbeak's story plays out under the open sky, but in the books Hagrid describes them as part of a larger herd, kept deeper in the woods, far from curious eyes. These half-eagle, half-horse creatures are fiercely territorial. Their talons sharper than swords, their temper quick to ignite at the smallest sign of disrespect. The forest gives them shelter and space, and the few who have seen them in their natural habitat tell of glimpses through the trees, wings unfolding in shafts of sunlight, eyes gleaming with ancient intelligence. Unicorns, too, inhabit these glades, their presence described with a kind of reverence in the books. In the first novel, the young trio follows the silvery trail of one's blood, learning from Firenze the centaur that the blood of a unicorn will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. This idea of purity violated by dark magic is one of the forest's most haunting elements, and the films only briefly touch it. In the novels, unicorn sightings are rare, even for Hogwarts staff, and the deeper you go into the forest, the more likely you are to find them grazing in moonlit clearings, untouched by the human world. One of the forest's most unsettling qualities in the books is how it seems to bend the rules of space. Students are told it stretches for miles, but no one can measure its true boundaries. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry's journey with the centaurs takes him to places where the trees grow so densely that light vanishes entirely and the air becomes thick, damp, and heavy. Hagrid himself admits there are areas what ain't on any map. This spatial uncertainty adds to the feeling that parts of the forest belong to a different, older world, one where human intrusion is not only unwelcome, but dangerous. There is also an element of political and magical tension hidden among the trees. The centaurs, led by Megorian in the later books, view the forest as their sovereign land. They resent Hogwarts and the Ministry of Magic for encroaching on it, and their hostility is far sharper in the books than in the films. When Umbridge offends them in Order of the Phoenix, it is not a simple scuffle. It is a full declaration that no human authority holds sway in their territory. This fierce independence hints that other, unseen factions may dwell deeper still, beyond even the centaurs' patrols. Hagrid's lessons, when he dares to hold them near the forest edge, also reveal much about the invisible inhabitants. He tells of thestrals, skeletal winged horses that can only be seen by those who have witnessed death, living in a sheltered grove. While they appear briefly in the films, the books describe them as part of a larger, hidden herd that roams beyond the castle's reach. The forest offers them the solitude they crave, but also the prey they need, for they are carnivorous and unafraid to hunt. The mention of trolls in Philosopher's Stone is fleeting but telling. A creature so dangerous that it nearly kills Harry and his friends in the castle could, according to Hagrid, be one of many that wander in from the mountains. The idea that such predators find their way into the forest's uncharted reaches underscores its role as a refuge for any magical being capable of surviving there, regardless of how threatening they are to wizards or muggles. Even the plant life of the Forbidden Forest has its own dark character. While the films give us a taste of the Whomping Willow, the books suggest that other magical flora thrive under the canopy. Trees that whisper in the wind, vines that move on their own, fungi with effects unknown to the wizarding world. Some are said to be older than Hogwarts itself, their roots tangled around buried ruins and forgotten pathways. It's no wonder the centaurs consider this place sacred. It may very well be as old as magic. Rowling also uses the forest in the books as a space for testing courage and morality. When Harry serves his first detention there, it's not just a punishment, it's a trial. The forest's darkness forces him to confront primal fears, while its beauty reminds him that danger and wonder often coexist. That duality is part of the forest's magic. It can terrify you in one moment and awe you in the next. The films convey the danger, but they rarely show the moments of quiet majesty that balance it. Perhaps the most chilling hint of the forest's greater mysteries comes in the Deathly Hallows. When Harry walks into it knowing he is about to face death, he finds not just a path but a feeling, as if the forest itself recognizes what he is about to do. The book describes the stillness, the way every sound falls away until only the crunch of his footsteps remains. This is a place that has witnessed countless moments of bravery and terror, yet it keeps its secrets, absorbing them into its endless expanse. The forest also serves as a silent witness to Hogwarts' history. Generations of students have passed through its edge, some never returning. Creatures have come and gone, alliances have shifted, but the forest remains. In its depths lie stories untold, encounters between magical beasts, ancient duels, perhaps even forgotten spells woven into the landscape. This permanence, combined with its constant change, makes it one of the richest, least explored settings in the wizarding world. Even Dumbledore treats the forest with measured respect. He never ventures deep unless absolutely necessary, and when he does, it is with knowledge few others possess. His restraint is telling. If a wizard of his power recognizes limits here, it confirms that the Forbidden Forest is not merely a school boundary, but a threshold into an older, wilder realm of magic. In the end, the Forbidden Forest of the books is more than a backdrop. It is a character in its own right. It watches, reacts, shelters, and threatens. It is home to creatures the films never mention, herds of hippogriffs, hidden unicorns, wandering trolls, and perhaps entities even darker than the acromantulas. The cinematic Hogwarts gives us a glimpse, but the literary Hogwarts hides an entire wilderness where danger and beauty share the same breath, and where even Hagrid dares not walk alone. Number 26, the Magical Library and its restricted section. The Hogwarts Library was more than a collection of dusty shelves and old tomes. It was a living, breathing heart of the castle, quietly holding centuries of magical thought, secrets, and even dangers. Madame Irma Pince, the stern librarian with a hawk-like stare, guarded it as if each book were her own child. Students who dared to dog-ear a page or spill ink were met with such withering glares that they never repeated the mistake. But beyond the neatly ordered sections on transfiguration, charms, potions, and history of magic lay something far more intriguing, something that even the films only hinted at, a small, roped-off area at the back, marked by a tau sign in bold letters, restricted section. To the casual visitor, it might have seemed like just another quiet corner, but to those who knew, it was a vault of knowledge that could both enlighten and endanger in equal measure. The restricted section was not a place where students could simply wander in out of curiosity. Entry required a signed note from a professor, an official acknowledgement that the reader's need for the contents outweighed the risks. In Harry's second year, the very idea of being able to step past that rope sent shivers of excitement through him. The books there were not forbidden because they were dull or difficult. They were forbidden because they contained magic that was too advanced, too dark, or too dangerous for young wizards to handle. Some of them whispered to themselves in the dead of night. Others had bindings that bit, or ink that moved like liquid shadow across the page. As Dumbledore once told Harry, "The pursuit of knowledge is not without its perils." Those words could have been the unofficial motto of the restricted section. When Harry first ventured into that area during his search for information about Nicholas Flamel in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the air felt different. It was colder, stiller, as though the very books were holding their breath, waiting to see if he was worthy of their secrets. The shelves were tightly packed with volumes so ancient their covers were cracked and brittle, their titles almost rubbed away. One such book, bound in peeling black leather, screamed loudly when Harry opened it, forcing him to slam it shut in panic. In the film adaptation, this moment is reduced to a brief visual, but in the book it is a tense, vivid scene that drives home the idea that these books were not meant to be handled lightly. J.K. Rowling's description, a piercing, blood-curdling shriek filled the library, captures the eerie, almost predatory nature of this knowledge. What makes the library so fascinating in the books is how it serves as more than just a backdrop. It is a character in its own right, offering clues, setting traps, and occasionally testing the resolve of those who seek its treasures. Hermione Granger, for example, practically lived among its shelves, navigating the cataloguing system with ease, pulling out obscure references on Polyjuice Potion or ancient magical creatures as if she had memorized the entire collection. Her willingness to risk trouble for the right book is perhaps best illustrated when she secured a note from Professor Lockhart, more interested in signing autographs than safeguarding dangerous texts, just to access Moste Potente potions in Chamber of Secrets. That book contained the recipe for the Polyjuice Potion, a concoction so advanced it could transform a person into someone else entirely. And yet it sat quietly on one of those forbidden shelves, waiting for the right reader to come along. The sensory details of the restricted section, as described in the books, create an atmosphere the films never fully embraced. There was the faint scent of mold mixed with something sharp and metallic, the feeling of parchment so thin it might crumble under a careless touch, and the oppressive silence broken only by the occasional rustle of pages that turned themselves. Some of the books bore warning notes scrawled by previous readers in the margins, tiny, desperate handwriting advising, "Do not read aloud," or "Avoid the third chapter at night." This made every step feel like trespassing in a sacred place where the wrong move could unleash consequences beyond imagination. The library also served as a catalyst for some of the trio's most pivotal discoveries. In the Half-Blood Prince, though much of the action centers on the potions classroom, Hermione's research into Horcruxes repeatedly leads her back to the library's deeper recesses, even though the specific books on the subject had been removed. The absence itself told her something important, that Dumbledore had deliberately cleared the shelves, knowing the danger of leaving such knowledge where eager hands might find it. This subtle layer of storytelling underscores that the restricted section was not just a place of passive danger, it was a battlefield where the school's leaders and the forces of darkness played a silent tug-of-war over the minds of young witches and wizards. One striking example of the library's hidden richness comes in Goblet of Fire, when Hermione's determination to understand the legal rights of house elves leads her to thick, dusty tomes in the back corners of the general stacks. While not in the restricted section, these books still reflect the idea that the library holds answers to questions no one else dares to ask. The films skim over such moments, choosing instead to highlight only the most obvious plot-driven uses of the library. Yet in the books, scenes like these give the sense that every problem, every mystery at Hogwarts could theoretically be unravelled within those walls, if only one had the skill, the nerve, and the permission to look in the right place. Harry's time in the restricted section was often driven by urgency, and this urgency made the scenes crackle with tension. When he snuck in under the invisibility cloak in his first year, the shadows seemed to stretch longer, the candlelight flickered more ominously, and even the sound of his own breathing seemed too loud. Rowling's choice to describe the specific sensations, cold sweat, the faint creak of the floorboards, the way Madame Pince's lantern light swept just inches away, immerses the reader in the danger of being caught. The films touch on this briefly, but fail to capture the claustrophobic dread that comes from knowing you are moments away from discovery, surrounded by books that might scream or bite at the slightest provocation. Madame Pince's own presence added to the mystique of the place. In Order of the Phoenix, she is described as treating the books as though they were her own private treasure. She did not simply enforce rules, she embodied the principle that this was not knowledge for the careless. Her fierce protection of the library mirrored the caution with which wizards had always guarded dangerous magical lore. In a world where a single incantation could change history, the idea that books themselves could be restricted becomes not only believable, but essential. The restricted section also embodies one of the core themes of the Harry Potter series, the tension between curiosity and caution. Again and again, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are faced with the choice of obeying the rules or breaking them in pursuit of a truth that could save lives. The library becomes a symbol of this choice, a place where disobedience might lead to enlightenment, but at a cost. The films present this moral tightrope far more simply, while the books linger on the weight of the decision, the quiet thrill of stepping past a do not enter sign, and the unspoken question, are you ready for what you might find? What is often overlooked is how personal the library's secrets became to the trio. After each foray into the restricted section, the knowledge they acquired was never just academic. It became part of their arsenal, a weapon against the forces that threatened them. The formula for Polyjuice Potion, the discovery of Nicola Flamel's identity, even hints about Horcruxes, all of these threads begin in that shadowed corner of the library. In a way, the restricted section was as critical to their journey as the Marauder's Map or Dumbledore's wisdom, yet its role is downplayed in the cinematic adaptations. Even in moments when they found nothing useful, the act of searching in the restricted section felt significant. It reinforced the idea that the answers to the wizarding world's greatest mysteries were never simply handed to the heroes. They had to be hunted down, earned, and sometimes wrestled from the jaws of danger. The physicality of turning those heavy, ancient pages, of squinting at faded ink under candlelight, lent a sense of authenticity to their discoveries. You could almost feel the dust settle on your fingertips as you read alongside them. There is a certain poetic justice in the fact that the restricted section, meant to keep dangerous knowledge out of the wrong hands, ended up serving the very students it was meant to protect from harm. Entrusting themselves with its contents, Harry, Hermione, and even occasionally Ron proved that sometimes bending the rules was not an act of rebellion, but of responsibility. The library did not judge, it simply waited for the reader who was willing to pay the price of its secrets. In the end, what the films reduced to a brief, shadowy backdrop is, in the books, a rich, layered world of its own. The Hogwarts library, and especially its forbidden section, is a place where magic is not just learned, but confronted, where the boundaries between wisdom and danger blur, and where the courage to read can be as important as the courage to fight. Those who have walked its aisles in the pages of the books know that behind every leather-bound spine lies a story, and behind every locked cabinet, a temptation. And for Harry, Ron, and Hermione, stepping past that rope was not just a rule broken, it was a step toward becoming the people they needed to be.